Okay. Yeah. Sorry. No, you're good. Good afternoon and welcome to the South Yuba Transportation Improvement Authority meeting on Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021 at 4 p.m. As a courtesy to others, please turn off cell phones or other electronic devices which may disrupt the meeting. If attending via Zoom, please have your microphones muted at all times when you're not speaking. The public will be given an opportunity to comment on action items on the agenda when the item is heard, and comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per individual or group. If you're attending remotely and you have a comment, please use the Zoom raise hand feature. Okay, so first up on the agenda is roll call, please.
Director Bradford?
Here.
Director Pendergraph?
Here.
Director West?
Here.
Director Vasquez?
Here. Okay.
You all present.
Oh. Thank you. Next is public communications. Any person may speak about any subject of concern within the jurisdiction of the authority, which is not on today's agenda. The total amount of time allotted shall be limited to a total of 15 minutes, and each individual or group will be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Prior to this time, speakers are requested to fill out a request to speak card and submit it to the secretary. Do we have any public in the room or on Zoom that wishes to speak on something that is not on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to action items, starting with A, approve meeting minutes for February 2nd, 2021. Any comments or questions from the board or the public? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first from Director West and a second from Director Pendergraph. Roll call vote, please.
Director Bradford?
Yes.
Director Pendergraph?
Yes.
Director Vasquez?
Yes.
Director West?
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next, we'll move on to item B, receive presentation and approve draft comprehensive implementation strategy, and then there's another list of things there that will be requested to do as well that I'm not going to read through them. So
I don't blame you. Good afternoon, directors. Mike Lee with Community Development, Yuba County. So this has been, I don't know, 8-12 months. I don't know how long we've been running through this process, but we're excited today to finally present the draft CIS, or Comprehensive Implementation Strategy. It's been a culmination of a lot of hard effort on behalf of both Wheatland staff and county staff, as well as Doc and the consultant putting it together. Today we have Liz Diamond and Matt Griggs with Dockin, who will be presenting the study and the summary, and then at the end of that we have several matters we'd like to discuss and seek direction on. So with that, fire away.
So I can look over here, make sure I do it right. Just click this. Nope.
Okay. Sure.
Well, we just get the thing to engage. All right, there. Good afternoon. I'm Liz Diamond with Docket Engineering. It's a pleasure to be here today to present to the City Board the comprehensive implementation strategy, and hopefully the electronics won't get the better of me as I try to work our way through this. So first, by way of review, some of the folks here will likely remember that we were before the board in February. And at that time, we reviewed the goals of what we wanted to accomplish with the implementation strategy. We also had developed a number of exhibits that showed the different SYTIA projects. I'm going to touch them, excuse me, them on here in a minute. And we also strategized a little bit about delivery. And it became pretty clear early on in the study that the full realignment of State Route 65 was a massive project that would take many, many years with no funding in sight to construct. So the direction at the time was to focus in on the more near-term projects that are a part of the overall grand plan, while still preserving the ability in the future to realign State Route 65. We had done some outreach. We talked with some of the stakeholders, folks like Caltrans, the people at Beals Air Force Base, as well as PCGPA staff and some informal conversations with property owners. So since that time, we've gone off and done some more work. We've done a traffic assessment. We've also put together some project costs that include a comprehensive look at what it's going to cost to deliver these projects, not only construction, but some fairly significant engineering and environmental costs, and as well as, the cost of doing business, the soft costs of doing the engineering and the planning and the processing, the permitting. We also have done some assessment of funding availability and how they might apply to these projects, as well as the steps that it's going to take to get through to deliver these projects. So that's what I want to focus on a little bit and summarize for you today. Now, by way of just recollection, or for those that might be listening that are new to the process, here are the SYTIA projects that are the subject of what we're talking about. If I can get my cursor to work. When I talk about near-term projects, I'm talking about the Plumas Lake Boulevard extension with a southbound loop onto State Route 70. I'm talking about a South Beale Road interchange with extension to 40 Mile Road. This is just an example of one of the alternatives that could work. We're talking about an East Wheatland Expressway that would allow traffic to bypass 65 and come up over 65 and the railroad to east of Wheatland to connect to Spenceville Road. And then we're talking about someday in the future, making sure we can use that infrastructure to eventually implement a full realignment of 65 and return existing 65 to a local road. So in doing that, one of the things that we did was a traffic assessment, and the importance of that is to make sure that these, what we're calling near term, I know it's still going to be a while, but these more near-term projects do have independent utility and can work and provide benefit on their own. And so as part of the traffic assessment, we were able to show that they do, as most of you I'm sure likely know from living and driving around up here, they would shift traffic from parallel facilities. They improve network efficiencies by reducing out of direction traffic. And that is important in this day and age when vehicle miles traveled reduction is very important. And they do address some operational and safety deficiency, things like trying to remove at-grade crossings that have a lot of traffic on them, left turns that are hard to make, that type of thing. So that was what is included in the traffic study, and that is included in an appendix of the report. The other thing that we did is, of course, develop costs so that you can begin to budget for these projects. And to develop costs, you have to have something to estimate. So we looked at a number of viable alternatives, and we kind of took an average of those to come up with what it would take to build these projects and what it would take to design them and permit them and get the right of way and et cetera. And so these are the big grand totals that you see. I'm going to touch on them a little more in a minute here. In our estimating, we broke them down by delivery phase so that you can begin to budget the early steps. We think that's what makes them competitive for funding. The funding that is out there on a federal level and on a state level is 99 out of 100 times geared towards construction. The feds want to see something built. They don't want to help you do step 1. They want to help you do step 10. And so getting these projects more ready for construction is a key element to getting them down the road, if you will. Sorry, the pun. These tables are in the report as well. So if when you're in the report, it looks something like this. We do have some hard copies if anyone wants to thumb through some, and you have it available to you, of course, electronically. Within the report, you'll see these tables that show the cost estimates. I did want to point out that the reason we've shown them over time is just to make sure folks know, even if you had all the money in the world and it was unconstrained, it would take some time to do these projects. And so what is reflected in these tables are a typical aggressive delivery schedule if money wasn't an issue. So it still takes some time to get these projects done. And what we've done is we've broken it down so that you get an idea, what the first step is. And I have another slide that will go into that some more, but we'll show you what you need in the early years that will then help you leverage perhaps getting final design funds or right-of-way funds, and where in your future you're trying to get total funds for construction. So there's a table for each project. Those first two, of course, were the East Wheatland Expressway and South Beale Interchange, all the phases needing funding. When you get to the Plumas Lake project, you'll see the words funded. That project is already in final design. It has an approved project report. It's got its environmental. So it's ready to push ahead if it only had the money. It needs its right-of-way money to get going on its next step. And then the State Route 65 realignment, you can see we've shown it in the future. And of course, it's got a fairly hefty price tag. Those are today dollars, or 2022 dollars. This chart is also in the report. And again, it's just a summation so you can get an idea, even without the State Route 65 realignment, you're talking some significant dollars. Now, the impact fee program, it's not its job to fund all of these costs. The impact fee there's a portion of costs between the impact fee and other revenues to fund the projects. And so it's going to take, a handful of funding sources to deliver these projects. So let's talk about the funding a little bit and the funding challenges. First of all, these are 4 major heavy-duty roadway jobs. And the current kind of trend in the industry at the federal level is encouraging other alternate modes of transportation. They're funding more transit-oriented projects, more walkability projects, more, bicycle lanes, more electric cars, that type of thing. Not good news necessarily for more rural area where, you don't have the densities where anyone's going to be bringing transit through here anytime soon. So we have to be crafty about it and be ready to frame these projects to compete for different types of funding sources. Now, you will find in the report in the appendix, we've compiled a number of funding sources that are available at the federal, state, regional, and local level. We've put together some tables I'm going to show you here in a minute that helps target what we think you should do to move things along. It may be slow, but slow and steady wins the race, if you will. You got to start somewhere. I think the main takeaway from the strategies, I think there's kind of 2 of them. I mean, there's a lot of things listed here, but it's get your projects as ready as you can with the money you can control so that you can compete on a state and federal level to snag some other money. And as you, at every step of the way, you're going to look at what's the craftiest way to pull in the much you can. When you get closer to construction, you'll probably phase some of these projects as you try to build this piece or that piece. Like the Beale Interchange is a huge project with a grade crossing and an overcrossing and ramps and an extension of 40-mile roads. You need to get it all approved together so you know where it's going to go and how it's going to connect and where you're going to need the right of way, but you don't need to all necessarily build it in one big construction package. So those are things every step of the way you're going to think about how are you going to make those things happen. You kind of eat the elephant a bite at a time, is an old saying one of my mentors taught me a long time ago. The other thing is to make sure these projects become known in your community and your region. We're starting, of course, the staff with the board knowing about these projects and what is needed, but getting them in your different planning documents, talking it up with people on SACOG or key influencers, Caltrans, making sure that, the information is out there. And we've, of course, started to do this with this process. These are a couple of tables that are in the report, and I just want to touch on this so that folks know what's available to them. In the report, there is a description, for example, each of the federal funds. In the appendix, you'll see a write-up that tells you what the funding source is, what it covers, what it's eligible for. But we thought we'd put together a couple tables within the body of the report that help flag things that are going to be maybe better for one project than another. For example, up here in federal funds, you've got Defense Access Road and Federal Lands Access. You've got a military base right here in town, right? So maybe the State Route 70 Plumas project to the west, not at the front gate of the base, that's probably not going to be very competitive for those funds. But the East Wheatland Expressway and the Beale project, maybe so. So for each of the funding sources, as you go down, we've tried to show for the various 4 projects, which is a more likely candidate than another. Some of the state programs, like for example, ATP, that's going to be competitive for the parts of these projects that are for bicycles or pedestrians and safety access for those types of alternate modes of transportation. But they're going to, again, you're not going to get that opportunity to fund your first step of design. When you get further down the road, you might be able to cull out parts of a project. You pick up a couple million from this source, a few million for that source, and so on. So for example, grade separation money on the Beale project, there's a grade separation. As you get to the regional and local, you see a lot more green and less red. That's because it's your local money, you have more control. So the recommendation we're making is to use your local dollars where you can control them on getting your projects ready so that they'll be more competitive for outside money. There was an opportunity while the report was being prepared. A call for federal earmarks requests was issued by the Congressman's office. It was a very short turnaround time to apply for something, but the project development team got wind of it and they huddled together and made the hard decision of, well, what would be the most competitive? What really could maybe catch something? And we quickly assisted with the help of everyone putting together an application. And while the application, it didn't get selected, it didn't get the money this round, it did raise the project, in the eyes of folks that are reviewing those things. And like with many things, you keep going after it, and after time, they've heard the name, and now they're thinking, oh yeah, that project. And so it did raise the project's profile. So even though it wasn't successful this round, we do think it was still a good thing that your staff was able to submit that earmark request. And a lot of people jumped on it really quick to get it in. So that was kind of cool. The other thing I wanted to touch on is the actual project development delivery process in the report. There's some information about that and some references to, these are very prescribed processes, especially on a state highway. Caltrans has about 10 manuals you can use for project development process and local assistance and right-of-way and construction and so on. So we take our cues from that, but the chart on the left is basically kind of tells you what the steps are. For the Beale project and the Wheatland Expressway project, you're way up here at step 1, all right? So the next step is to develop the preliminary design and the project study report. And we're recommending that you do a pretty hefty, thorough job in that, because that will save you time and money when you get into the environmental clearance project approval phase. What the project study report does is it documents the consideration of alternatives, many of which are then rejected, so that when you move to the environmental clearance step, you're doing that detailed environmental technical studies on only maybe 3 or 4. And maybe some of those also have phasing in them. So you want to try to get good data. I mean, I've seen project study reports that are very brief. They don't have good topographic information. All the estimates then are wrong. And you end up being very disappointed later. And so we're encouraging SYTIA to do a thorough job now, getting your project study report based on good data and cull down the alternatives to a reasonable number that can move forward into that project approval phase. The Plumas Lake project, it's already past the project report approval phase. And so It's looking for some right-of-way money. So you can see it's down here in kind of the yellowish color. And State Route 65, it also is, way up here, but it has the added complexity of needing a route adoption process. So when you do eventually get to the full realignment, there's a very arduous process that you will need to move through to adopt the route. And it is one of the reasons that we feel if you can show the independent utility and worthiness of these other projects, it's good to chase them and try to get them done, because you could be bogged down for many years working on a route adoption process. So with that, I'll just dive into the recommendations. I know Mike might want to go through what's on the agenda, but in kind of in short and brief, obviously we'd love for you to approve the implementation strategy. We're recommending that project study reports be done for those two projects at the kind of bracket 65, the East Wheatland Expressway and the State Route 65 Beale Interchange project. The step would be to issue requests for proposals so that you can get somebody to help you prepare those project study reports. And then, get the projects ready to attract discretionary funds. And in addition to doing the PSR, that's making sure they're programmed in your Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program. For example, if an opportunity came along that perhaps the State Route 70 project could apply for right-of-way money, it's not in there now and it wouldn't be eligible. So working to get those in the MTIP, making sure that they're ready as they can be should an opportunity come along is the recommendation. So with that, I'm glad to sit down and be quiet or try to answer any questions or hand it back off to Mike.
Questions from the board? No? Okay. So then I have a question for council, I believe. So these items that are listed on the agenda and on the slide, I know they're maybe slightly different, but they're pretty close to the same. Are we able to take those with one motion or multiple motions?
I'm glad you asked that. I was gonna cut in if we didn't get there. They should be separate motions. They are separate actions by this board. And so to have a clean record as to how everybody voted and what they were voting on, take them as separate items.
Okay, and we're also being asked to approve the draft CIS, is that correct? So then we'll start with a motion for approving the draft CIS. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Okay, I have a first and a second. Is there any public comment related to approving the draft CIS? Okay, seeing none, any additional board comment or question? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Can I confirm that Director West made the second?
Yes, I made the second.
Thank you.
There we go.
Okay. Director Bradford,
Yes.
Director Pendergraph,
Yes.
Director Vasquez,
Yes.
Director West.
Yes.
Thank you. It's unanimous.
Great, thank you. Next, we will do issue an RFP and prepare the PSR for the East Wheatland Expressway. So do I have a first on that?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, so I have a first from Director Pendergraph and a second from Director Vasquez. Any public comment or additional comment from the board related to this item? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Director Bradford,
Yes.
Director Pendergraph,
Yes.
Director Vasquez,
Yes.
Director West.
Yes.
Thank you. It's unanimous.
Okay, next up is to issue an RFP to prepare the PSR for the South Beale Road interchange with the extension to 40 Mile Road. Do I have a first for that?
I'll make a motion. We accept. Second.
Okay, I have a first from Director Pendergraph and a second from Director Vasquez. Any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Director Bradford,
Yes.
Director Pendergraph,
Yes.
Director Vasquez,
Yes.
Director West.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is to direct staff to work with SACOG to update programming in the MTP and the TIP.
This is Pendergraph. I'll make a motion. We do. Second.
Okay, I have a first from Director Pendergraph and a second from Director Vasquez. Any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Director Bradford,
Yes.
Director Pendergraph,
Yes.
Director Vasquez,
Yes.
Director West.
Yes.
Thank you. That's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. And I believe the last item, direct staff to present to the Board of Supervisors a funding proposal to fund right-of-way acquisition for the Plumas Lake Boulevard extension and the State Route 70 southbound loop on-ramp.
This Director Pendergraph, I so move. Second.
Okay, I have a first from Director Pendergraph and a second from Director West. Any public comment on this item?
Yeah, I think that should say Board of Directors, not Board of Supervisors.
Oh, okay. Will you amend your motion to be
I
that?
do.
Okay, and your second?
Second amendment.
Okay. So with that, roll call vote, please.
Director Bradford,
Yes.
Director Pendergraph,
Yes.
Director Vasquez,
Yes.
Director West.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
It's unanimous.
before moving on, did I cover everything that we needed a motion for? Okay, other than obviously item C, which we haven't talked about yet. So with that, then we will move on to item C, which is receive presentation regarding administrative component and program/project management components for the SYTIA operation and provide direction to staff.
Good afternoon again, Mike Lee, Community Development. One thing I thought of as we were going through that presentation is maybe we need to present an item to the board, whether we want to call it SYTIA or SYTIA, because we hear both over and over, and we want to remain uniform on that front. But anyways, that's just aside.
You say
Did I just call it SYTIA? Because I know I used to, but I've been trying to be better since more people were calling it SYTIA.
I
So
hear SYTIA and
Okay.
SYTIA, and there's been no official proclamation on it.
I say just as long as it gets done, who cares?
We
All
have
right.
an English major here.
Right?
So anyways, inherent in any impact fee program, there is a considerable amount of administrative costs that go along with that. In this particular fee program, the implementing resolution was silent in that regard. Most of the other impact fee programs that the county administers is a 3% admin cost on the gross receipts. And that is to, cover, well, let's see, I listed a handful. It's the financial, mainly the financial, the collection of the money, depositing the money, the financial tracking, the auditing, mitigation fee act reporting, scheduling, clerking the meetings, 87 costs, et cetera. So there's a handful of, or a considerable amount of work that goes on behind the scenes. And so far that work has been done without any offsetting compensation. So I wanted to present that to your board for discussion and direction. If you see so fit, then we would bring in an updated resolution that accommodated that admin component. There's also some additional discussion. I think it'd probably be easiest maybe or best to discuss them independently. They're kind of unique facets or components. There's also, and I differentiated between program management costs and project management costs. What I've been calling project management costs are, for example, this meeting here, we have city staff attending, we have county staff attending, ongoing meetings with the consultant, with Dawkin to work through the CIS. Those types of costs are what I call project management costs. Beyond that, though, we also have a program management costs, and that's since SYTIA doesn't have any standalone staff. Basically, it falls on me or other staff to do certain functions. For example, when the casino project was recently, they're proposing expansion. We have to analyze their project impact and negotiate with them on trying to get some fees for SYTIA. So that I took on that function. That's just an example. So I'd like to kind of maybe discuss each individual component, get some thoughts, direction from the board on that. Answer any questions you may have as well. So for the project management and program management components, we were essentially looking at billing staff time to the fee program to recoup those costs. There will be some on the project management side. There'll be both City of Wheatland staff as well as county staff. On the program management costs, that would be county staff the way the program sits now, because the county is the one running, essentially managing the program. City and county staff are both mindful of the sensitivity of billing to the program. They're, the more money we charge to the program, then the less there is for construction of projects. So we're not looking at this as a golden egg by any means. It's just to recoup some of the costs of the time we're putting in. So happy to hear your thoughts and answer any questions.
Through the chair, it sounds fair. Sounds like the only way we can go. Do you want a motion on that?
Additional comments, questions?
Yeah, through the chair, I'm glad to hear you say the city also, because we're incurring some costs, as you know, as well. So that's really reassuring. I don't have any problem with it. I'm just curious, what is the balance of our account at this point?
The current balance is I think just shy of 1.9 million.
Okay, good. So we can cover a couple of PSRs anyway.
Yeah, and we are also expecting in the negotiations with the casino, I think we were anticipating another 600 or 700,000 that's going to be deposited quarterly over the next 2 years. So
Fantastic. Do we have any statutory reporting requirements for the JPA?
It's my understanding that any fee that's adopted through the Mitigation Fee Act requires reporting. I think it's annual. Council may be able to back me up on that. But so as far as I know, all impact fee programs are required to do the annual.
Okay. Then one final question. Sorry, I'm loading you up.
No worries.
I guess would we have maybe a proposed budget going forward, looking at what our expenses, what we're thinking our expenses would be, and kind of adopt that just like we do with all other boards?
That is a very good point. And I think based on kind of the direction that I'm sensing, we are going to have to do something, I think, a little more formal, especially if we're going to start having some costs that staff will be billing to it, so on and so forth. So that'll be another program management cost that I will have to burden to, prepare a budget and bring that to your board.
I don't mean to add on to your workload.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional comments or questions?
I just, that budget is going to have to be the top priority, I think, to get us so we know what we've got and what we got to spend, and in each category. I think that would be important to bring back to the next meeting so that we can see that, so we have some timeline and some put some eyes on some paper and figures to see what's really going on. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's got to be done. It's got to be paid for. And,
Well, I'll plan on, if I can work everything up in time and through the reviews, then I would plan to, at the next meeting, bring back both an updated resolution for the fees as well as a proposed budget. And as we all know, everybody likes transparency. So, I don't want somebody to come in here and say, hey, where's that budget and where's that stuff going? We don't need that at this early stage.
So I think the board did a great job with comments. I don't have anything else, although following up kind of on the budget comment and the report comment, maybe one thing to add under board and staff member reports, every time we meet, if you can just tell us what the current balance is in the impact fee account, that might be a helpful thing.
Yeah, I can do that, no problem. Just FYI, I think the for last fiscal year, the gross revenues was, I think, $1.5 million for fiscal, the fiscal year that just ended in at June 30th.
Great. Okay. So it doesn't, sounds like you just need direction on this, not a motion. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's,
Because the formal approval will be when you bring the
Yeah, there will be a
resolution
formal
back to us.
do we have consensus then? It sounds like with that.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay.
And then did you need anything else? I mean, is that all the questions answered for you?
I have what I need, so I have direction.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Thank you. So next is board and staff member reports. So Director Pendergraft, do you have anything?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Director West?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you for all the hard work and, to Dawkin and Mike. I know you put an awful lot of time into this and, Dane and everybody, there's a lot of work that's gone into this and it's really exciting to see where we are right now. This is kind of a big moment. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Director Vasquez?
I think it's great direction to go to. We've needed this for years.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything from staff from the city of Wheatland? Any comments or anything? Okay. So Mike, anything else from you?
No, just like I said, this is a big moment. We've kind of been building up to this for a little while, so I think it's
Day
some
or
good
two.
progress and staff's as excited as you are.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I agree. And I really appreciated the comprehensive implementation strategy. It really gave, a really great look at the projects and how we have to get from, A to Z to get those accomplished. And I think it's important to have that down on paper and, right, it gives us something to follow and a direction to go. And so anyway, I appreciate all the effort on that. So with that, if there's nothing else, I'll adjourn today's meeting. Thank you.